Well, hello and welcome, everybody. This is your host, Ken D. Foster, for the Voices of Courage show. You know, there's a lot going on in the world today. Just turn on the news. Maybe you should turn off the news, actually. But if you turn on the news, you see the chaos, the stress, the violence, the unhappiness of individuals out there. You know, the people have health issues. They have issues financially, have issues in their career. This show isn't about all of that. This show is about you. And this show is about you understanding the principles of truth, wisdom, courage, spiritual principles that will help uplift you, uplift your family, uplift our community and our society when you start to apply these principles on a consistent basis. So what does it take? Well, it takes a little wisdom to understand these principles, but mostly it takes receptivity. You have to be open to receive something new. So if you hear something on our show today and you go, no, that can't be true. That's exactly where you need to open up possibility that it is true. It's just open possibility. Because if you can step past your limited thinking and step into your conscious, superconscious thinking, superconscious mind, the mind that connects all of us together. Actually, it's the mind of God. And when you can connect into that deeply, anything is possible. You can heal your body. You can heal whatever's going on mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. You can heal it. You can change it. You can grow yourself. You can expand. Think of an area right now where you're stuck. Where are you stuck? Okay. Is it in your career? Is it in your finances? Is it in a relationship? Is it you've got a dream you want to manifest, but you haven't been able to do it? You've got something going on that just isn't working for you. Well, today is the day that you can change that. Yeah, actually, right today. Okay. Now, it's going to take you opening up your mind. Like I said, it's going to take some courage. It's going to take you to listen to my guest very deeply. She's got a lot of wisdom and understanding about what's going on in this world and how you can make the changes in your life that you need to. And she's going to help you to make that shift if you're open and receptive. It's going to be a great show. I'm so glad you're here with me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I'm going to have my very special guest.
Whether because of discomfort, lack of mobility, your lifestyle, or occupation, you sit inactively way too many hours a day. Introducing Ellipse, the premium quality automatic seated exerciser that strengthens legs, increases mobility, and boosts circulation without physical strain or impact.
It is so quiet that none of my coworkers even know I'm using it.
Strengthen and tone your legs, increase your mobility, flexibility, and balance. Plus, stimulate healthy circulation.
My joints feel better, my knees feel better, my back feels better. It makes me feel stronger too.
Perfect for home therapy. Whisper quiet to use while you work.
My circulation is moving, I'm burning calories, and it makes me feel energetic.
Call now and order Ellipse, the seated exerciser that strengthens legs, increases mobility, and boosts circulation. Call and get upgraded to the Deluxe Bundle. Get the faster motor or 5 miles of steps per hour, the step counter, the sport mat, and wireless remote. Call now.
Well, welcome back, everybody. This is your host, Ken D. Foster, and I have my very special guest, Sara O'Meara, on the show again today. Although, when I say again, she's been on some of our other shows and our other networks. Today's the day that we have her on the Voices of Courage show. So, Sara, welcome. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. I'm so happy to be back with you again, Ken.
Well, and today is the day. Today is your birthday, so happy birthday.
It happens to me.
Happens once a year to all of us. It's kind of an interesting process.
Look at me right.
Yeah, and we look in the mirror and we go, "Really? Am I really that age?" Anyway, it's such an honor to have you here on the show, Sara. You are a woman that reflects the values that we hold on this show, and your resilience, your faith, and your deep commitment to serving humanity is very commendable. So, for those of you that don't know Sara, let me give you a brief introduction. From surviving terminal cancer diagnosis and receiving a miraculous healing that launched her 5-decade ministry, to co-founding ChildHelp, one of the nation's leading nonprofits dedicated to rescuing and transforming the lives of abused and neglected children. Sara's journey is nothing short but inspiring. Her best-selling book, Healed, Your Miracle Awaits, and decades of ministry at the Little Chapel in Paradise Valley have touched thousands of lives with God's healing love, while her leadership at ChildHelp has impacted over 14 million children worldwide, and probably a lot more than that. I'm so blessed to have you here. She's received over 1,000 humanitarian awards, including the U.S. President's Lifetime Achievement Award. And she embodies what this show is about: faith, courage, truth, and action. You're a true beacon of success and people we can model, Sara. I'm glad you're here with me.
Well, thank you. That's a wonderful introduction.
Thank you, ma'am. Well, how did you get into ministering with the angels? Let's just start there.
Well, I had already started ChildHelp, which is the largest organization trying to eradicate child abuse in America. And it was well on its way when I found that I had terminal cancer. And when the doctor told me that I had less than 3 months to live, it was such a shock. I was in my very early 30s and had 2 little boys to raise, and was certainly not expecting to hear that. But I all of a sudden heard on my television that was on a woman, Catherine Kuhlman, that said, if you need a miracle, then come to the Shrine Auditorium this Sunday, for I believe in miracles because I believe in God. Well, I thought, what kind of an act is this? Actually, she was very, very dramatic. However, I knew that I had to be there. I had always thought, oh, these are like holy roller type things, and I had been raised as a Presbyterian. I was a Sunday school teacher in the Presbyterian church, but nevertheless, I knew I had to be at the Shrine Auditorium. However, the doctor had told me that I could not get out of bed. In fact, they wanted me to stay in the hospital 4 more days. And I had to convince him that I would not get out of bed. And I crossed my fingers under the sheet because I knew that I was going to try to be there. I called and found out the Shrine Auditorium that for terminally ill people that they did take you in a certain door. And they did have my name on that list. So my friend took me that morning with all anticipation that there would be a miracle for me. However, when I knocked on the door to go in, they said that the entire auditorium was packed to the gills, that they could not take one more person, and slam went the door. So when my friend Jan came back from the parking lot to join me, I had to tell her, we're out of luck. We can't get in. And as only God could do, he had a woman that saw me, that knew me, that said, what in the world are you doing here, Sara? I said, well, I won't feel well. I didn't tell her what really was wrong. And I'd hoped to be there, but cannot get a seat. And she came out to get her sweater in her car because it was cold. She had 2 seats, that of her husband's and herself, and she was gracious enough to give me her seat. And as I climbed up the steps, I realized that I was bleeding. My incision had been about 14 inches long, and I had clamps. They didn't have stitches way back then. And this was 52 years ago. And so as I walked up the steps to take the seats, and I realized I was stepping in my own blood, I was very weak and she had an end seat. And as I sat down, really flopped down, my body went up to the ceiling. I was floating around in a pink cloud. I just thought I'm either hallucinating or I'm dying. But I didn't, anything that she said did not trigger my faith or anything, because it was kind of like off in a distance. But as she began her sermon, I don't know how long that was. However, when she stopped her sermon, she said, I must stop. The Holy Spirit wants me to tell you that there is a young woman that's being healed of cancer riddled throughout her body, and God is healing her for a very special purpose. I was still up in the ceiling going around in the cloud.
Oh my God.
So it did not dawn on me, because I had never been to a service like that I could be the one of whom she was speaking.
Yeah.
Well, she came back then to say the young lady that's being healed will know it, because it's like 1,000 needles going through her body. Well, I was back in my seat. It was like 1,000 needles going through my body. In fact, the Holy Spirit was shaking me so hard, the entire row was knocked down by God's power. I was not aware of that at that time. And so I prayed. I said, God, if she could possibly be speaking about me, let me know somehow, because I was just so new at all of this. And she said, the lady is sitting in the last balcony, the first row, in a red dress. And I had a red, white, and blue dress on, predominantly red. So the ushers, realizing all that was going on, knelt by me and said, aren't you the one being healed? And I said, I think so. Duh. Yeah. And so they said, get up to go give your testimony.
Right.
And I said this, Ken. I said to God, I don't know about that. And when I did, there was a voice that was very real that said to me, you mean I would do this for you and you would deny me? Well, I jumped up. As I jumped up, it was like hot oil that was all over my body. It wasn't, of course, but that's what it felt like. And I realized I had all my energy back. And as I glided down the stairway to get to the bottom of the stairs in order to go up to the podium to give my testimony, it was crowded. People were healed. They were most anxious to get up there. And I was not. So I lingered back, but I said, you know, God, I'm here. I'm here to do it. But you see, I'm not going to get up there. Well, Catherine came over to the end of the stage, and she pointed at the very back where I was standing and said, the girl in the red dress, you come forward. The Holy Spirit is all over you. Well, I did. It was like the parting of the Red Sea. I had to go. I went up and I did tell it exactly as it was. But one of the reasons I'm telling you this about the testimony is how important it is that we give our testimony. I can't stress enough the importance of giving God the praise for healings and the opportunity to be able to lift the faith of another person. God asks one thing of us when he heals us, and that is to have the faith and trust in him, and to share that with others, to give them the upliftment to know that they too can be healed. Now, the enemy sometimes might want to convince you otherwise. They might want to say, oh, it's probably just good today or tomorrow, or negativity might come in where you're convinced otherwise, that the healings happen. But my prayer right now is for anyone listening that needs a healing is to know that your life can be made different only by God's grace. And you must testify and tell people and give him the glory and be able to speak about your testimony. Remember what God said in Matthew 5:15-16. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light, your own light, shine before others, that they may see God's good deeds and glorify the Father in heaven.
I love it. Well, Sarah, I'm going to take a break here, but when I come back, I want to take a little deeper dive into the piece of surrender that it took for you to, let go of the ego to a point where you could go see Catherine Coleman and then be able to, this healing to actually happen. I think a lot of people get stuck in that place where there's just, it can happen for other people. I don't know if it's going to happen for me, that piece. So I got to take a quick break. And when we get back, let's address that. We'll be right back.
Imagine this is your money and someone wants to take it from you. Who is it? The IRS. Guess what? They want your money and they can take it, all of it if they want. Remember, they sent you that letter right over here that said, hey, you owe us a bunch of cash and we're going to take it from you right now. So what do? You fight back by letting our team of experts work it out with the IRS so you can keep your money. And hey, we're good at what we do. When you hire us, you get a team of guys on your side that know the IRS laws, and we'll fight really hard to save your money. So, if you owe the IRS a ton of cash and you want to keep it, call right now and learn for free how we can help you put it back in your pocket. 5 minutes of your time right now can save you thousands of dollars. And the best part, it's a free call, so please call right now.
Well, welcome back, everybody. This is your host, Kendi Foster. I'm speaking with Minister Sara O'Meara, who is the amazing minister at the little chapel in Paradise Valley, outside of Scottsdale, Arizona. Sarah, that surrender piece, I think there's a piece there. I think we get caught up in what surrender is. Like, we're giving up. We're not going to be able to do something we want to do. But what is that surrender piece that is there with the healing that takes place?
Well, Ken, it is just letting go, absolutely giving control to God. Now, that's hard. That's easier said than done. We all like to be in control of ourselves, in control of the circumstances. But if we can let go, pray, do what we can humanly, that's why God gave us hands and feet. But He is asking us to give it to Him. So when we let go and truly give it to Him, and that's why I think sometimes illness gets to be at the last go round, just like mine was. You have no other place but on your knees to go, because doctors do what they can. They do scientific knowledge and they do it well, but they're not God, and they can't play God. The worst thing I think that doctors will say is, well, you only have 3 months to live, because you go to the calendar and you look at those days and you almost predict the day you're going to die, instead of saying, absolutely not. I am not taking this evil. I am taking God's way. I'm turning my life over to Him. When we make Him the number one priority in our life, everything happens. That's when we have our ministering angels, which we'll go into hopefully before the program ends. But the important thing to know is that when we give up, it's the answer to life. When we give up everything to God and only depend on Him and truly have faith and trust in Him, He can do so much better than we can. When He tells us that His plans are greater than our own, He means it. And we may spend a whole life thinking we're going in the right path, that we want to go this way. We want to make all the money. We want to be successful, whatever it is. What we should want is what God's plan for our life is, and only want what His plan is, because that's wherein our comfort and our happiness, our joy, our peace, everything comes when we can give it up to Him. So that's what it really means. It's to surrender it.
There's going the wrong way. You mentioned going the wrong way leaves clues, right? It leaves broken relationships. It leaves poor health. It leads lack of trust. It leads to feelings of guilt and shame and remorse, and going the wrong way leaves clues. But we're human. We all, everybody makes mistakes. But when we're in that place, because I like what you're talking about, we're in that place where we get to the place we realize I can't do it. I can't do it anymore. I can't. The way I'm doing it is not working, for maybe a variety of reasons, and then that's where the surrender piece comes. And again, I don't think anybody likes to feel like they surrender or lose, but this is called surrendering to win. So you're giving the glory back to God, and it's a wonderful place to be. It's difficult to get there for a lot of us. That's what I do.
A lot of people think they have to be a certain religion, but I want to tell you that it's so important to know your oneness with God, that we are all brothers and sisters in Him. Man created different religions. God did not do that. We are the ones that put it in boxes, which have really divided mankind. God never intended that that we were not all of His children, that we were one. And just think about it. God, Jesus never said, "Oh, before I heal you, let me ask you, what denomination are you?" So He healed everyone that came into His path that had the faith to come there. And He loves each of us as individuals. In fact, the thing that I noticed in all of the healings that happen and have happened in the 52 years that I have been given this gift, that I have noticed is that the love of God is so encompassing, and wanting to show the love of Himself to mankind, that He's not looking that if you're a Baptist or a Catholic or Jewish or whatever. He's looking at your heart. He's looking at your, to see what kind of faith you have in Him and the trust that you have in Him. So He heals everybody differently. Think of Jesus when He healed Barnabas. It was an instant healing. But when He healed another blind man, what did He do? He mixed up spittle with mud in order to put on his eyes to see. Why wouldn't He use it in the same way? Because everyone is individual. And when people say to me, "Oh, the Holy Spirit's all over me because I feel the heat," and the person next to them might say, "Well, I only feel a real cool breeze," like they had to feel the heat in order to be healed. Everybody's healed in a different way.
So that brings up the question, what's the difference between a progressive healing and an instantaneous healing?
A progressive healing is when it happens on the spot. And those that come to the little chapel see a lot of those. In fact, more instantaneous healings happen than progressive healings in the little chapel. But progressive healings is where you think, "Oh, I do feel a little better, but the pain is still there." So I think the reason God doesn't give instantaneous healings always is the growth that you have between the time that you are getting some healing to the time that it is complete. So I'll explain that. If someone comes to the little chapel and they only have some degree of pain lifted, then they have to put forth even more faith to say, I am healed. I know God is healing me to perfection, and keep that faith. I'll never forget, and I ended up working with Catherine Kuhlman, went with her to Israel and some other places, and she died a couple of weeks after we were in Israel, actually. But my point was, there were people in her group that I never will forget. A lady was there every single service for 3 years. She sat in the same place, and I would say hello to her. I'd say, "Hi, Julie. How are you?" And she'd say, "Oh, I'm going to get my healing today." And I'd think, "Oh my gosh, she's been there every single time for all this time. She hasn't received her healing." Well, one day, Julie got it. And she had rheumatoid arthritis throughout her whole body, and she was completely healed that day. She never gave up. She never looked at the halftime score. She knew that one day she would be healed.
Well, let me ask you this. What about a healing that, I've been to the church. I've experienced my healings personally, so I know this is absolutely 100% real.
Yeah.
And, but I've experienced where I get a healing and it's all my, not all of them. Some have been instantaneous, but I've had several progressive ones. So I'm like, okay, I got to hold the faith. I'm going to hold the faith. And it everything heals, right? But then it gets re-injured again. And I'm like back to square one. I'm wondering what happened. What's up with that?
Well, often we create our own problems. Let me give you an example. I've had many people that are healed of diabetes, completely healed. They're off of everything. They are healed for 3 years and the diabetes comes back. If you delve into it, they start their old bad eating problems of eating sweets and all the things. So when they test, they think, oh, well, I'll just take a shot. They take a shot, but their diabetes gets worse and worse. So they come back for another healing. Some get it. I don't know that everybody will. But also the healing of let's say a back. And somebody lifts things and they notice that when they lift too heavy of things, that their back automatically, they have sacroiliac, and that's very painful. I know, I've had it. And so what they do is forget, and they do the same thing over again and lift the same area that damages their back again. So that can be why it comes back.
That's good. So we got to take personal responsibility on what the cause was. It's like, get to the cause. We have cause and effect, right? So we've got cause here to get to the understanding, so we don't keep repeating it and get the same effects over and over again.
Yes.
I'm also wondering about a lot of people come in and they go, I've had this forever. I don't know if it'll ever heal for me. It really hurts. You don't understand this. They've got a lot of built up limitations and negativity that they keep programming, throwing around their mind. What do we need to do here? What do you suggest here?
Well, we can't limit God. And what we have to know is, whether it's 1 day or 500 days you've had an ailment, God is there to heal you. And let me give you an example. Donna Reed, the actress. You might know her.
I'm in that generation.
Well, I was called to pray for her. She was dying that night, and her family called me at the last minute. They said, Donna is really dying, and can you come? I went to the hospital, and when I went there, her family were in the green room planning her funeral. They had already called and they ordered the casket and they did all those things. And I said to them, what you are asking me to do is to believe that she's going to be receive a healing, but you are negatively planning her funeral. So you're combating what I'm trying to do. And they said, well, we never thought of it that way. So I said, stop it immediately. We're asking for God to heal her. I went in and prayed for her. And the nurses said, well, she's rallying somewhat. And I said, well, I'll be back in the morning. And the nurses said, well, if she's alive. And I said, she'll be alive. I went back the following morning. Her son was standing in the doorway because he had come to visit her. They had been on the outs for some time. They were not close, but he had come because the family called and said she was dying. As I walked up to the door, he said, you're Sarah, aren't you? And I said, yes. And he said, I could tell because all I saw was a blob of light coming around, and said, I want you to look at my mother. And that every single thing, all of her tubes were out. She was sitting up. It was a true miracle.
Wow.
And all she wanted to do was to be home at Christmas. That's all she asked for. And Christmas was only 3 days away. And so, believe it or not, Donna came home for Christmas. She was doing so fabulously well. I can't tell you how well she was doing because she was planning to do a movie and she was studying the lines, and Ephraim Zimbalist and I were prayer partners, and we were at her home and said, we just can't believe how you look. And she said, you know, Sarah, when I was praying, I saw Jesus, and he was, and at the minute she said that, I had a vision of Jesus, but Jesus was in a striped robe that was kind of dingy looking, not like you would expect a white robe of Jesus. And I said, is he in a field walking? She said, yes, but he has on something so strange, a striped robe. And she said, it's very dull. And I said, you know, I have the same vision. Well, when Ephraim and I got in the car, I said, Ephraim, I have a feeling God's coming home for Donna. And he said, well, how can that be? She's completely healed. I said, I don't know. Donna died the next day. Wow. And it was a lack of potassium in her system, had nothing whatsoever to do with her cancer. Now, I wondered about that so much, but what happened that day is she reunited with two of her family members that they had not spoken to for years, and she became very close to her son. This was at least 40 years ago. He still contacts me today that the way he came to the Lord was through that episode. How do we know that God used that just for that purpose? God uses us in so many different ways.
Well, one of the ways that I know that we can sure get on the page with God is to go out and Sarah has a book out there. It's called Healed, Your Miracle Awaits. And we might have to move over a little, Sarah. I don't know if they can see your face there, but you can get this book on Amazon. This is a wonderful way to start your understanding of what's possible for you, what's possible for your healing journey. And Sarah, this book, I'm going to take it off screen, but it's called Healed, Your Miracle Awaits for my listening audience. Healed, Your Miracle Awaits by Sara, and it's O-Mera, M-E-R-A, O, it's not a hyphen, O, comma, M-E-R-A-O. What is that anyway? That's apostrophe.
Apostrophe. Oh, no. Uh-huh.
But anyway, that's where you can get that book. That book's got a lot of story and a lot of messages of hope and truth and courage. You know, one of the things that I know you're we talked about it early in the show, but I want to bring it more into light, and that is being a light for God. You wrote this book to be the light for God, and it takes courage to do that. Whether it's sharing a testimonial, whether it's writing a book, whether it's seeing a situation where you can be a benefit and tell your story, it takes courage to do that. And where did you find your courage to do what you've done? Your mission. I remember you told me the story about when you were at when you first decided that you would help someone heal, and they had a big tumor in their cheek. And where did you find the courage? That's the question.
Well, I tell you, it was Father Ralph DiOrio, who was a tremendous healer. He lived in Massachusetts, and that's part of my story about my healing gift, because Catherine tried to tell me I had a gift of healing, and I thought it was healing the children that we care for and transform lives and save that have been abused. But it was more than that. It was for an actual healing gift. So Father DiOrio heard about me because of Catherine, that people would ask him about Catherine. And he had never met her and wanted to know more about her. And they would say, if you really want to know her, you should talk to a lady named Sara O'Meara. So that's how I met him in the first place. And as we grew to be friends, he was told that I had the gift of healing from God. And so he asked me to help him at his services, like I did at Catherine's at first. And I did. We even did services in New York and Massachusetts and other places. And when we were doing one in Massachusetts, he said he was having a workshop. And I thought it would be for maybe 100 people. It was 3,000 people. And it was for a week. And at the very end of this service, the very day that it ended, he said, I'm going to do something that I have never done before. Those that had come to this workshop to receive the healing and did not, if you will stand in this line over to my right, I will pray for you individually. And Sara O'Meara will stand over to by the podium, and she will pray for you too. So I rushed up to him and said, Father DiOrio, you can't do that to me. I can't. There's nothing I can do. I can't. He told the ushers, he said, you get her over here there. So I stood there and I prayed. I said, God, please don't let anyone be in my line. And God answered my prayer. Nobody was, because they didn't know me that well. They Father DiOrio. And so there I stood for a long time, and there was a long snake line on his side. And then I prayed, oh God, maybe one. It's very embarrassing. And so at the very end of the line, the man was about 6'5" with young children around, and I realized it was a family. And he was bending down talking, whether I'm sure it was, shall we try or not? We're not going to get up to Father DiOrio. So they left the line and they came up to me and he asked me to pray. I was so nervous to think that he would think I could do anything with my prayers, that all I could think of was, dear God, heal this man. Well, when I said that, it was enough, and I got to see the healing myself, because the tumor went completely down, and the children were screaming, look at Daddy, look at Daddy. And so our eyes all flew up, and we saw the tumor going down in front of our eyes. When other people saw that, then they came over and came to my line, and that began my courage, let's say, of healing, because about 85% of those that were healed. But Ken, one thing I want to point out is how very important prayers are. So many people say, oh, God doesn't hear my prayers. And I have a short story. Do I have time?
I gotta take a quick break, so I'm gonna pause you on that, and we'll listen to the story as soon as we get back from our break. All righty, here we go.
Hi, everyone watching at home. We're here to remind you that if you or someone you know were injured in an accident that was not your fault, listen up. We have live agents available right now to answer your questions and tell you how much your case is potentially worth. Hi, I'm Gina Bellich, here with spokesman and TV personality Tom Mustin with us in the Help Center. So Tom, phones are really busy over there. Tell us what kind of calls you're seeing.
Well, Gina, first off, thank you for having me here in the call center with you. We always enjoy talking to the viewers and getting folks the compensation that they deserve. You know, we're seeing calls about all kinds of accidents, but the most common by far has been car accidents. So if you or someone you know were injured in an accident that was not your fault, give us a call right now. You'll speak with a live person. They'll answer any questions you have and tell you if you have a case and how much your case is potentially worth.
Thanks, Tom. All right, folks at home, you heard it. Take advantage of this opportunity and call now.
Hi, folks. Joe Namath here. Did you know that I wear hearing aids? I love my hearing aids, and I am here to help you get a deal on the same brand I wear.
Don't waste thousands on expensive hearing aids when you can get MD Hearing's revolutionary Neo hearing aids for just $297 a pair. The Neo is a true hearing aid, not an amplifier. With rechargeable technology many customers say is superior to more expensive models. And you can get 2 Neo hearing aids with a 45-day risk-free trial, free shipping, and free lifetime US-based support for only $297. The Neo is nearly invisible with its tiny in-the-ear canal design.
Call my friends at MD Hearing and get the over-the-counter hearing aids that I use for you.
Call now and get not 1 but 2 Neo hearing aids for just $297.
800-789-7885. Again, that's 800-789-7885.
Well, welcome back, everybody. This is your host, Kendi Foster. I'll be right back with my guest, Sara O'Meara, in just a second. But I want to remind all of you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you do that, you'll be able to share this network with all your family and friends and people that you know would really benefit from watching the show and listening to the messages of truth, courage, and wisdom. So we hope you'll go there. You can go to youtube.com/@the-courage-network, youtube.com/@the-courage-network. All righty. Well, my guest, Sara, is with me. We're going to be, let's take a little deeper dive in prayer. I love the subject. You were going to tell us a story about that. Go ahead, Sara.
Well, you know, Psalm 103, verse 20 says, "Praise the Lord, you his angels, you mighty ones who do his bidding." In other words, to do his work, who obey his word. Now, their primary purpose is to serve God, to worship, and to praise him. But the angels tell us that the moment one of us makes the conscious decision to dedicate his or her life to God, that person's guardian angel then dedicates himself fully to that human being concerned. So if you continue in that light of the dedication to God, the angels are ever present. And I don't think we realize or give credit enough to our angels. We don't stop to thank them enough. But it's due to your dedicated life that the purpose of more and more angels can be assigned to you. And especially if you're doing more work for others, they assign even more angels to you. But, you know, luck, we think sometimes, oh, it's luck. Well, luck is spelled G-O-D. It's just like when a car might stall in a deadly storm or a rainstorm or a small plane lost in the fog or a swimmer out too far. And in that moment's desperation comes some logical form of rescue, like, the truck driver came by. A voice from the radio tower heard me. After all, a lifeguard came. But what the victim is saying, and they turn to thank their rescue. What happens is their rescuer is gone, and that has actually happened to me. On an angel story, I won't tell you this, but I want to tell you even more potent stories about angels. But we were driving back from Arizona to California because we lived in California then. And my best friend, Yvonne, and our husbands were driving back from setting up our daughters in school at ASU. Well, there is a place on I-10 that is a huge, long vacancy, and you can't get trucks or anybody to stop because they're going so fast. And we had a flat tire. And when we realized we had a flat tire, the tire that we could put on as a substitute was underneath the clothes that we had packed in plastic bags. And so we had to take those off. But then, because of the fast way the cars were going, they blew all over the place. And Yvonne and I were out trying to get those, get all of our clothes together while the men were trying to figure out how to put on the new tire. Well, our husbands were a bust. They didn't know what to do next, but the tire was so small it wouldn't have fit anyway. So that was the day before cell phones, so you couldn't call for help. And our husband said, nobody's going to stop this bus. They can't if they wanted to. And so I said, well, we'll just have to pray. Well, Yvonne and I were praying, and there was the funniest looking little car you have ever seen. It was an antique car. It was something out of yesteryear. And it was chugging along, chug, chug, chug. It pulled up behind us, and he said, can I help you? And we said, yes, you can. You can call when you hit, we'll give you the money, but if you would call for us when you get to the nearest phone and get help sent back, we'd so appreciate it. Well, the man said, well, I gotten something in my back car. That's the way he talked. And he said, I think I can do it. And so he put this big lift under the car. He put one step on it. It went up. He put on the tire so fast that it made our heads spin. We were still looking at it. We turned around to thank him, and he was gone. And as far as you could see, you could not see the car. You could not see the man. Even our husbands had to say, well, yes. Well,
I love that. I love this story. That's a great story. And, there are miracles all around us, and sometimes they're very blatant. But, we do have to have the eyes to see the miracles. And when we take off the scales of what's not possible, when we start to put on the eyes of truth and courage and love, things start to become possible in all areas of life. And Sara, I'm out of time. I really wanted to take a deep dive into several other subjects around, especially having a relationship with God, a deep relationship with God. But I guess you got a minute. You got a minute. How can we increase our relationship with God? And then I got to run.
Well, the way we can increase it is to give him time. When we want to be with anybody, we want to spend time with them. And the more time we spend, the better it is, and the more friendship develops. Well, it's the same thing with God. If you really want to be closer to God, you have to stay in prayer with him. But you also have to stop to listen to him. The trouble with all of us, we're in such a hurry. We'll tell God everything we want, blah, 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 and this is it, and this is it. And would you do this for me, God? But we don't wait to hear an answer. We don't wait for him to talk to us from our heart, our soul. And so if I say anything to anybody, it would be this. Take time to be with your Lord and Savior. It's all worth it. And he only judges by our heart. And the past is the past if you ask for repentance. And you start fresh from that time on. And if you give him time, you cannot imagine what your life is like, because it's totally different when you have him as the first priority.
Wow. The book is Healed, Your Miracle Awaits by Sara O'Meara. I hope everybody in this audience will go and purchase a copy of that book and step into a greater joy, a greater happiness, a greater relationship with your Creator, and live the blessed life that's possible for all of us. So thank you so much, Sara, for being here. Love to have you back again and again because I love your message.
I have some great stories about angels.
Oh, well, we'll have to do an angel show. That would be all right. Until next time, all of you, I pray that you will continue to see the unseeable and know the unknowable, and you'll be able to do the impossible. Keep watching the show. Take care.